It's been intriguing all over our state. It's been intriguing over the West, and there are a lot of people looking to buy right now.
Yeah, there are. You're right. It used to be a good thing when you said like, "Oh man, business is on fire," right?
Yes.
It is, but so is a lot of California. But we're getting through it, and that's something segueing into what I wanted to chat with you guys about today is because is dealing with what's going on, insurance, right? I've got a deal right now that's like it's in escrow, but we can't close until fire's 100% out, and the lender's like, okay, we got to have that insurance binder. So I can only imagine that you guys are putting out your own fires. Sorry to use that analogy, but I can imagine there's some tough challenges, and curious to know.
Yeah.
Hey, give me the nuggets, the gold nuggets of what I can do, or perhaps any insight and perhaps.
Well, and I'm not sure if it depends on the insurance broker. I do know, like, I got one that I'm working on right now in Windsor, where the borrower had to sign an affidavit that their home wasn't affected. But no problem.
That's the extent of most of the stuff that we've been seeing here locally. Yes. But I mean, it's really dependent on exactly where the home is at zip code wise. So I think we've not been in some of the more impacted zip codes. So hard to say, not quite sure how those are being impacted at the moment. I mean, really the narrative that we had received from our company when it first happened was that our purchases in given zip codes were still funding them as long as obviously the insurance was, still bound and all that stuff. So, but on refinances, they did halt funding on loans that were in that situation. So, yeah, I mean, and at this point, Matt, what you're referring to is a refi, correct?
Yes, right. That's exactly it.
So yeah, I mean, but again, I think that it really just depends on where the house is at, right?
Got it. So if it's in a certain zip code, the lender's going to say, hey, halt, or?
Well, we've said, okay, if it's a purchase. That's been our direction. So what I've been hearing from another agent said that this company won't fund the loan, right? So it could be that other companies have a different,
Well, what about, just the process of, you have to have insurance to close, right? So it's not.
Yeah, so that's like an insurance issue than a lender issue.
Right. That's what. Yeah. Right. So what the insurance companies are saying, it has to be fully contained, 100% containment before they're going to close or bind the policy. Although I'm hearing if you get a quote and get it bound, and then a fire happens, they still have to honor it. So, little tip out there, if you're getting a contract, get it in, get your insurance secure, get it bound, and then you're good to go, regardless of what happens.
A huge reminder of how important that process is, and really understanding your coverages and what could happen in these events, getting it up front. Just being really much more educated and bringing your insurance partners into the conversation much earlier in the process.
Right. Okay. And for a couple of reasons. One, sticker shock with potential cost, right? Or even obtaining insurance. You can definitely get insurance. It's just maybe some combination of some costly different carriers, Fair Plan, and from what I've seen is that they'll use the Fair Plan and pair it with something else to get the coverage you need. Depends on price point and location, but right off the bat. And the question: have you seen? Yeah, has that been an issue where your file has to go back to underwriting because you get the insurance policy and it's like,
it can.
If it goes up, then yes, it will. Have to be re-looked at. So that's why it's important to have that up front, especially if it's tied on the DTI, debt to income ratio up front. You're going to have to make sure that it doesn't go any higher than a certain threshold.
Right.
And also it comes down to its location. So if you are buying this unique property on some hillside somewhere, you're not close to a fire hydrant, you have one way in and out, your insurance policy is going to be a lot higher than if you're in more of a cookie cutter neighborhood. And that has a lot to do with it too. And I think that it's important for lenders to also pay attention to that, but also for real estate agents to be having that conversation up front too. And understanding like, hey, we're tight on ratios. Hey, they're very price sensitive. They can only afford so much. You might want to rule out more rural properties right now.
Right.
Premiums are
Yeah, you really got to be talking to, if you're an agent and, you have to talk to the loan officer, you really got to see what they're using for insurance as their quote and be on the same page, to your point, Matt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just got into contract on a property in France Valley Road area, and that one of the questions that came up during just our tour of the property was insurance, and I definitely impressed upon the buyer to get out there and get quotes as soon as possible, if they're considering really making a move on the property, and so vital to do because of that. Just what you're getting into. That's no one likes surprises in transactions, and that can be a big one.
Has this affected any of your deals that are in contract right now, or maybe right about to be in contract since this happened? Has it changed the mind state as far as either buyer desirability or any of that kind of stuff?
So I have a listing on Morningside Drive, which is in Guerneville, runs right down the main street of Guerneville, parallel to it on River Road, and by Armstrong Woods. It's not far away, maybe 4 or 5 miles away, and the sellers were evacuated. And they were gone out of the house for 11 days. Buyers they hung in there, and we've just recalibrated the timeline based on the time that they were evacuated, because obviously they couldn't do inspections, couldn't do appraisals, and so it just slowed everything down or stopped everything for that time frame. But it has thankfully just the dialogue, the communication between all parties, agents and buyer and seller, kept the flow of the transaction going despite that. So really happy that they didn't get spooked, and just the outcome was much more positive than it could have been. So my experience has been good that sellers, buyers, like you said, there's a lot of people buying right now, Joe, and so buyers they're in competitive situations, and so they're staying engaged, and I think that had something to do with it as well.
It seems to me, if you've been living here for any amount of time, that, and even if you haven't, in some cases, just because it's been fairly public now, that this is something that unfortunately has been something that's going on now, almost as a regular part of what we expect, right? Like I said, unfortunately. However, in reality, everybody's pretty much susceptible to this. With Coffee Park, Fountain Grove, so you can see that we all have that risk here. So, I think we all know that as we continue to live here in this county, and, we've already accepted that risk inherently by staying to live here, right? Truthfully. So
yeah, I agree.
So that's interesting because it seems to me like, if you're going to live here, you're going to live here, and there's going to be that risk of.
Right. When I think too, it's not there was 2017 hit Santa Rosa, but before was Lake County. Right now it's Yosemite. There's Santa Cruz and Bernardino. It's like statewide, right? This is not just Sonoma County, and I think that's what is important, and what people are understanding is you're right. We've somewhat, I guess, as buying in California, and especially high fire areas, that you have that expectation, or you make preparations for the potential.
Well, and really what it comes down to is beauty equals high fire area. And so 25% of Californians are in fire areas.
Okay.
And we are in a very beautiful state. And where there's more beauty, there's more chances of fire. And I think we're going to start seeing some more regulations, some more changes. Big part of that would be controlled burning. If we actually started leveraging that a lot more, we would see different outcomes. But even with real estate, it's amazing how now we're having this focus more on fires, but we're still dealing with COVID on top of that.
Yeah.
I actually have borrowers right now who they are going through a lot longer close of escrow because the sellers and their concerns with COVID, so no matter what, and not to set this negative pole and everything, but we have environmental concerns, but then we also have pandemic that is still happening, and because of that pandemic, we're still having this massive migration that is happening from the citified areas where people want to live around the beauty that is still a little more flammable.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a good point. The one, or a big difference from at least the recent fire in Sonoma County is, non-PG&E related. So this is kind of a, naturally occurring event, which fires are, right? I mean, that's what, it was one of I think you and I were talking about this a while ago, Matt, is that one of Monroe's school teachers is a botanist and was talking about the natural occurrence of wildfires and the activity they have on the environment. So yes, there's that, while in some cases it's good, obviously the ones that are man-made are generated, PG&E generated are horrible, but then you mix that in with COVID, and you got a kind of a nasty cocktail, but an interesting scenario despite it, where you still have, despite that challenges, a busy market. Very interesting how we've all been adjusting to that and seeing, experiencing it firsthand, and write-ups in the paper recently about it, just how much of a shift there is out of those higher populated areas too into fire zones, fire areas, and going into willingly.
Well, and if you look at the state of the nation with it all, it's like, okay, inventory is low. We're seeing there's a fair decent amount of new listings popping up. There's also a decent amount of price reductions, and yet there's also a decent amount of people who are getting in bidding wars, and rates, a lot of it through COVID have remained historically low too. So you have all these different, almost opposing aspects that are almost incongruent, but yet they're congruent at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's a very unique situation because,
well said.
Well, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
It is very interesting.
Well, incongruently congruent.
Yeah. So
I concur.
You have you guys being a driving force with that too, being offering such low rates, or having such lower rates, I should say. I mean, that is a huge motivator for buyers, right? I mean, going in, and whether they're 2 or 3, I mean, we're still talking about some pretty small numbers. I mean, I can count that high. So, I mean, that's
at least you can.
I think what's happening right now is you got this big wave, obviously a huge wave of almost a full over % of drop in rate in a very quick time frame. When at that peak time it happened was when prices were starting. It was still buyer's market, right? So now you got kind of that buyer's market a little bit at that point. Rates going way down, so it's like it just jump started that demand even more, and so now it's starting to drive those prices up. right? And that's also because we don't have enough supply, right? So it'll be interesting to see how, I think the rates have a huge factor of that, but the supply as well has been what's kind of kept that going. It'll be interesting to see, because I do think it's going to hit a ceiling, because they're not just going to keep going up, because you still got a lot of people that aren't in work, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that are going to exit a forbearance period. So I think that we're seeing some appreciation. Well, I also see that we're going to see some real polarization between the people who are earning a lot and earning very little, because of the nature of how jobs are being done. And there's just an adjustment period, because there's people that are busier than they've ever been in their life because of the way they need to adjust to all the changes. And then there's people that almost have become almost obsolete in the way that their current job position has worked. So I think that you'll see some people obviously having to change the way they enter back into the workforce.
Most certainly, and I think we're also too is looking at, like, you look at the unemployment rate, and you still have over 20 million people on unemployment, so it's like you're saying, Joe, there's that polarization that the gap is widening, but yet at the same time, I think one of the great things that we need to acknowledge are lumber costs and how that's going to affect new construction. Lumber is up about 111% year over year, over 8% in 1 month. So that starts to affect how much new construction is happening, because new construction got almost, I don't want to say it stopped, a lot of it got put on pause because the thought process when COVID came on is that less people be buying homes. Now all these people want to buy homes, and new construction is going to really start escalating more and more because of a shortage of inventory, especially for homes. But then lumber costs have gone up exponentially. So you're going to and that's always going to affect the bottom line of the buyer and their prowess. So I think we're going to start seeing new home costs going up because of that. And so resale homes will probably also go up a little more because of that too, especially in a low rate market. But then we're still going to see this divide. But then condo sales have gone down. So, it's very interesting because and I don't know the numbers on how many more new condos are being built, but we're definitely seeing an uptick of prospects for new construction on homes, but at this higher premium because of lumber.
Crazy. Yeah, interesting. Good point. Very good point. Yeah. It's I remember digressing with somebody about this a while back, and I can't remember exactly the details of it, but we were discussing, the technology. Oh, it was you, Joe. We were talking about this.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it as you were saying it too.
Okay. Now the foggy dad brain is kicking in.
Yeah.
Oh, to be 29 again.
Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, just hearing that,
Technology, right?
obviously
How
the
do you
disruption
do-
to technology will hopefully keep us the disruption. Some new technology, I hope, will disrupt that status quo, so that we can keep the market really hot. Like I said, going with the standard lumber cost and increasing the cost of building, when really we need to be driving it down. I do hope that in the future that we will start to actually see that. But that is the reality we're dealing with, because there is a lot of lobbying around the lumber industry and a lot of people involved on making sure that goes as the status quo.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you have everybody
Definitely.
else who trickles down from that, and contractors and plumbers and electricians and masons and you name it. Yeah, and all of the industries involved in there. So it makes sense that it'll be. I think it'll get to that point where it'll have to be almost somewhat forced.
Yes.
I guess, like, all right.
Exactly what I was thinking.
It's got to go. It's got to
Well,
happen.
if you think about it, that's exactly what's happened with COVID, right? I mean, we're all like, boom, everybody's forced to doing this, what we're doing now. And some people can do it and some people can't, but it's just the reality. And that's why some people are thriving with the new environment and some aren't, and some are obsolete and some are more important than they've ever been.
Yep.
Very much so, and I think part of in the real estate world is going to be interesting how this all plays out for investment properties. You know, because you're looking at what's happening with evictions being halted, and it's always intrigues me because when I think about for many renters out there, especially people who don't have jobs right now, how important that is. But then when you think about in the long run, you're going to have less people willing to invest their money in real estate as a pure investment property or about cash flow when they have concerns about being able to bring in enough rents. And so that can still come back and hurt the renter more down the road. So I think that we are going to see a massive push, then a massive pull, and a massive push and a massive pull as we try to get back to normal through it.
Yeah. I guess time will tell and how the investor world goes. I mean, I think there'll always be appetite for it, but yeah, what is that? How strong and
Well, it's just risk reward, right? So
Yeah.
it's when the risk, obviously there's for the risk that you're taking, the reward is really not that high, right? So this has really got to be something that's super passive, and you just need a place to park your money. You're not going to get people really in a higher risk type of thing with real estate especially around here.
Yep.
Mhm.
Good stuff, you guys. Good,
Yes.
a lot to ponder and some good feedback. Appreciate you guys taking the time to do that or share insight there too. I mean, definitely helps what I do. Getting out there and knowing how to advise clients. And you guys are always awesome. Firing off pre-approvals, getting back to us, making things go seamlessly on your side. So appreciate you guys for that.
We appreciate you, man.
We do appreciate you.
This has been long overdue, and we would sing you happy birthday, but we don't want to just impress everybody with our singing skills.
Oh no, you can go for it.
Yeah. Happy birthday.